And then he
Okay,
came
this here's a significant.
You can say what you want to say.
This is a significant corner here. You just told me about. Tell me about why this is significant.
Well, it's significant. Glenda and Ron came down to visit Grandpa and Grandma one weekend or one time, and we got word back that they'd rolled the car. It was a Studebaker. Later, I saw the story was that Glenda was driving and a dog ran across the road and she tried to dodge it. Later on, the story came out that they took the corner too fast and they were not used to gravel and rolled it because of nothing more than taking a corner too fast.
So they would have rolled it right into here.
Somewhere in here.
Outside there.
I think Adrian Dake came up and helped them right it again. They were able to drive it back home. There wasn't that much damage done to it.
And about what year would this have been?
Oh, I would guess that's around about 65. It was because we
never heard that.
And then what year Studebaker? That wasn't one of Dad's first cars?
Well, it wasn't my car. It wasn't his car.
It was your car?
It was our car. It was a bright orange when we had it repainted. But it was a good little car.
Remember what year it was?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, this is here. Ron will remember it. Are we on?
We're on.
Right immediately ahead, it was this little swayed draw here. Some 60, 70 more years ago. We were coming down to Grandpa and Grandma's and it rained and it was very muddy and wheels balled up and we got stuck right a few feet ahead of us here. And I was out pulling the mud out of the tires or off the wheels so they'd go around again. And my hands were cold and I lost our wedding band. And we replaced it with another, but our original band for our wedding is somewhere in this little draw. Then Donald, what's happened up here on the hill?
1950 or 55 years ago, I proposed I guess I gave her engagement ring on this, pulled off onto the entry of this field here.
This field to the left?
Right in there used to be a driveway here, and
this is where Marianne said.
That's where we.
Marianne said yes, huh?
Sealed the.
Right here, this very spot. You want to go kneel there right now?
No, it's not that hallowed right now. But it did bring back memories.
Yeah.
Well, that's an.
I'm going to tell you another this year. Dad almost got killed on this bridge down here.
Yes.
Old Ray Calhoun came here with a straight job when they began to get a little larger trucks, and he got stuck. So Dad brought his John Deere down here that had old iron wheels on it, and Dad hooked on the back of him to pull him out of it, and Ray was gunning the truck, and all of a sudden he hit ground, and it came back and ran into Dad's tractors, and old John Deere tractor wheels. He had it in low gear. It picked him up and brought the truck right up over on top of Dad and pushed against the steering wheel, Dad against the steering wheel, and broke the steering column and shut the gas off. Otherwise,
oh man,
probably would not have had Grandpa.
So do you mean the notches on the wheels acted like a
big lugs on
right,
there.
and it grabbed the vehicle?
Underneath the back of that, it was a 2-ton truck.
Oh wow!
And that steering casting is about that big round on the front end of an old Model A John Deere, and the weight of came through his body, through the steering wheel, up to that casting and snapped it off. And whatever kept from crushing him, smashing him.
He was pretty sore. We were concerned about him for a long time.
He was a tough man.
Wow.
That was tough. Then another story. Are you still with me?
I'm with you.
Another story, that lane right where the building that Ryan is building, there used to be a lane that went down to the creek. And oftentimes for the weekend, Dad would pasture the horses down the creek rather than up in the main pasture. So Saturday night, he'd lead them across the road with a rope and halter and take the halter off and let them range for the weekend. Well, this particular time, he took the halter off old Don, who was a little rambunctious anyway. And when Don, the old horse, turned around, he kicked in the air, just in fun. But he kicked up, and when his heel went so high, when his hoofs came down, it tipped Dad's cap down over his eyes. If he'd have been an inch closer, his brains had been kicked out. But that's how close we had of missing a father. with that time. Did you know that, Don?
I didn't know that. I know that he walked inside one of the horses.
So that was old Nig.
and slapped it on the rump, and it knocked his hat off.
He kicked him, and then he kicked both him and Oscar out the barn door.
Yeah,
they were looking out the door one time, and they saw Oscar rolling out the door. And from then on, he was never any good because he was afraid of blood, and we could never use him safely. That was old Nig.
Yeah, that was Nig. Well,
he was a dangerous horse.
Yeah.
But that I can see how that happened with Don. He kicked out, and his legs stretched way up in the air, and when he hit the bill of Dad's cap. Oh.
Now you said, not to change too quickly here, but you said this pond here is where your mother used to just like going fishing?
No,
this one?
This is another pond.
Oh, another one?
We haven't been down this road yet.
Okay. But you're telling me Grandma liked to fish, though? Your mom enjoyed fishing?
Yeah. This is the road that Don took first year in 8th grade school.
Rode up to 8th
then he
grade
rode up to Mum's and put his horse in that barn.
The barn there.
Up to the left at 11 o'clock.
That was back when the little Ford tractors were just coming out. I was coming up that hill hurrying to school one morning, and a neighbor came down the road with that little tractor, and Nellie didn't notice it. And all of a sudden she looked up, and here it came down her, and she bolted.
Wow.
And she went off through the ditch and went to the fence, and I fell off. I guess probably one of the few times I fell off her.
Wow.
And then the lady, old lady Ballhay, ran out and grabbed the horse and helped me get on again. So all I would think of was going home. I was so shook up. I got home, and Dad said, "Now don't let her buffalo you. You get her back on there, and you ride her back up there." And I did.
Good for you.
Well, good for Dad.
Well, good for both of you.
Yeah. Activities.
Well, we kept on living.
And a lot of opportunities to get hurt too.
Yes, there were. There were a lot of it. I reviewed a couple up with Mark yesterday. Why? How we got out of some of those, I don't know.
Well, I believe in guardian angels.
Well, I think we can thank the Lord for that. Another office. On the mud road, you always drove into the snow if you could, or any puddles of water, because you could get enough water in, it wouldn't ball up. So you always drove for the soft spots, the wet spots. You get, or dry spots, but in between, it could ball up in just a few feet.
Another close call I had was on the hill right north of the house. I was driving that Ford, and it had a gas tank tube that came out the side of the car.
Yeah.
And it got to rubbing on there and rubbed a hole in there. And I was coming home from school one day, and I got on top of that hill, and I looked around, and the fire was shooting out in the gas tank. I stopped and jumped out of the car and ran down the hill to home, and it didn't blow up, so I went back and threw dirt in the gas tank and stopped it. That was a crazy thing to do, but
Right out of that,
we had to take off the gas tank and clean the dirt out of the gas tank.
right out to the right there, that driveway, out to the right here, I just passed that driveway into that pasture, brought back a memory I hadn't thought of for good years when I was a senior in high school or after that, we were harvesting, and I don't know, there were 3 or 4 of us guys together for that night. When they got together, because of that, we decided to go out swimming. So we looked around for a country pond, and we went down to that pond right there. All 4 of us stripped off our clothes and swam there in the dark, having a great time. Then we got home, and of course you remember when we washed, we didn't have a bathroom nor a bathtub. To wash after a dirty day in the field, we would take a dishpan full, which held about 3 quarts of water, warm water, take it out on the sink, out on the sidewalk between the windmill and the house, and wet ourselves down with a handful or 2 of water. Then we'd soap ourselves all in a lather till we looked as white as a ghost. Then all we used the water for, not to wash, but just to rinse the soap off. And we could come out, we did that every night after night throughout the summer. That's the way we washed. And Andy Zeke, it seemed like somebody else, but I think it was Andy. We hired him to help us one summer. And the Model A Ford was down by the corn crib, pointed north towards the house. he was in the middle of out there washing. He was about half soaked up, stark naked, and I turned the lights of the car on him. He did some he did some capers you wouldn't believe. I don't know how it ended up, but that was the way all three of us, or all of us men.
So first you shot him in the rear, and then you spotlighted him for all the neighbors to see, huh?
But we had some time swimming though. And
What pond would that have been?
the pond that we right when I spoke,
Oh,
there was a pond over the hill down in that pasture
left the right side.
on the right side.
Oh,
And we went down swimming in there. It was not the safest thing to do because we didn't know the water, and it wasn't not a wise thing, although we were probably all good swimmers, fair swimmers. Okay, after the drought back in the early 30s, it was dry. We didn't have any crops for 2 or 3 years, nothing. How Dad and Mother survived, I don't know. And of course that followed the Depression, which we were very poor. Everybody was poor. Some were poorer than others. Many lost their farms. But I can remember going to school one time with the Dake family. They took me to there was Adrian and Francis and Martha who went to school together one day, and they needed some gasoline, so they went out and caught a couple of chickens. And I remember I was in the front seat and the 2 chickens in a gunny sack between my legs, and we took those to the grocery store to sell. And I suppose we got maybe 30, 40 cents. I don't know if even that much, enough to buy a gallon or 2 of gasoline for just to survive. But Dad and Mother, from the eggs were worth very little, and the cream was worth very little. So after probably a week's working of taking care of the chickens, gathering the eggs, taking them to the store, maybe we might get $1. I can't remember exactly. And maybe we get $1 from our the butterfat cream that we sold, and that was sold by how well it tested. The higher the test butterfat, the more we got for it. And maybe we get $1 for that. So Mother would trade out the value of the eggs and the cream for groceries. Donald and I never got more than 1 egg at a meal time, because to eat more than 1 egg would be eating up our livelihood. However, on Easter, we did have the privilege of having 2 eggs. And I always look forward to Easter because I loved eggs. Donald didn't care so much for them because I liked them soft like Dad did. And knowing that Donald didn't enjoy seeing stringy eggs, I kind of made it a point, if I had a soft egg, to let a little white drool off the spoon and slip to the plate below, and that would about turn his stomach. And I don't think he's been able to eat soft eggs since. But I don't know if I profited much because he never gave me his egg. So our income was very limited. We were poor, but it was honorable, and Dad was and Mother very good. They owed no debts, unpaid debts, and they were as honest as could be. Then after the drought came the Depression, or along with it, concurrent to that, came the drought. And then at the tail end of the drought, or during the drought, the dust storms came in from the south. They came in like just a big cloud a time or two, just like a storm came up within an hour or two, and in a few minutes we were enveloped in just pure dust. At times we couldn't see, during broad daylight, you couldn't see 20 feet away. In the house, it was night, like Don said earlier, there was just a glow in the house, the fine dust in the house. There were piles of dirt where wind blew in the cracks of the door, through the window or somewhere. There'd be piles of dirt. Fences were blown over with silt 2 and 3 feet. Instead of snow banks, we had dirt banks. Some fence we dug out. There are some few fences that we just plowed over. We never saw them again. So, and there were It was very hard on the land. Of course, we brought a lot of land came in from Oklahoma, but it took a lot of our land too. Took the silt off, destroyed a lot of the fertile topsoil, and then with that drought, then came the grasshoppers. Now, during the drought, we didn't have any corn, so we tried to put up Russian thistles. These thistles are normally called tumbleweeds, and they were very sticky. But if you cut them, the idea was that we could cut them when they were not quite mature, the stickers had not developed, and we could maybe make feed foliage out of it for the cattle. We tried baling them. That didn't work. And that was a job, baling stickery tumbleweed. Then we tried cutting them up in the inch cutter and put them in silage. Well, all it did would do was rotten, so we end up with a big pile of rotten Russian thistles. So that, and then the livestock were poor, the horses were thin, and it was a very, very hard time. Then after, in the midst of this, following the drought and the dust storm, then the grasshoppers came in. But that was 2 or 3 years later, and we'd had some semblance of a corn crop started. And as I recall, it was during thrashing time. The corn was probably knee-high, waist-high, and the grasshoppers came in. And they came in by the hordes, flying in the air, they're just in the air like, well, unbelievable. And then as they came in, they started eating everything. They got in the house, they ate holes in the curtain, they took pieces out of ate chips out of the pitchfork handles, I guess is the salt they're looking after. They ate the lines on the harness, they ate fly nets, they ate anything they could get a hold of. They came, that's when I told you they denuded our orchard by coming in and taking the leaves off. Then they took the bark off the trees, they took the meat off the green peaches and left peach pits on the white trees. And it ruined, with the bark off, it ruined all our orchard immediately. The cornfield was maybe waist high on Monday, but by Wednesday or Thursday, you could look off across the bare field and then look down the roads and see little pots where they not only had stalked, they ate down after the roots into the ground, leaving little holes down the road. They denuded everything. Anything was green was gone in 3 or 4 days. So that wiped us out. So the depression, the drought, the grasshopper plague, and then things were very rough. And what really got the economy going again was the Second World War, when things began to change. Don went to the services later in the war, and I can remember, I was telling you, Mark, about how we learned to drive about that time with a car. We had to have gas stamps to drive the car even to town, and we were very limited. We were only given a few stamps for a few gallons of gas. So we were very, very conservative with it. And when we drove a car, we imagined that, or fantasized that we'd have an egg between our foot and the accelerator pedal, so we never accelerated sharply. We did this to conserve all the gasoline we could. And if you had it then right after that, I took when I graduated from Wheaton in 45, did I tell about the combines, or did I? I did, didn't I?
Just the threshing.
After 45, I had a friend that showed us, or had a contact with Massey Harris Machinery Company, and I took 3 combines to the Kansas fields, and at that time we were able to get special coupons for harvest. Otherwise, you stayed at home. So much for the depression, the grasshoppers. Another incident with the grasshoppers, during the worst of it, if you'd look west into the sun in late afternoon, the grasshoppers would get around on the east side of the posts for shade, and if you're looking down a fence row, it looked like you had a brightly painted fence post for as long as the fences. You could